Welcome back to this week's episode of 101 Sports, the Tape Deck, where we take a look forward and a look back at the things that have happened in sports. So let's start by taking a look back at 1 o'clock to the NFL games and see what happened. Week 8 in the NFL, Dallas versus Detroit, Megatron versus Dez, and Megatron gets on the board first, but Dez would not be denied later in the game, getting a little spin off the catch, tippy toes all the way to the end zone. No one catches him. Dallas goes up 27-17, but Stafford and crew weren't over. Calvin gets tackled right at the 1. Calvin had a huge day, 329 yards, second most in NFL history, but the clock is ticking down. Stafford's getting everyone to the line. Everyone thinks it's getting ready for a spike, but no, Stafford has something else in mind. Jumps over and into the end zone. No one saw it coming. Detroit wins 31-30 over the Dallas Cowboys. Cleveland versus Kansas City. Kansas City trying to remain the only unbeaten in the NFL, but Cleveland will try to prevent that with a little trickery of their own. Flea flicker bringing out, and well, they score the touchdown, but as it's been all season, Kansas City comes back and says, no, this is our league, this is our game, and we're going to get the W. Kansas City wins 23-17 over the Cleveland Browns, goes 8-0. New England versus Miami. The Dolphins trying to make their case in the AFCs, but when New England is tipping the ball to one another, well, New England says, no, this is our division still. Good luck. You can wait till next year. Stephen Ridley into the end zone, securing the victory. New England wins, goes 6-2. Buffalo versus New Orleans. New Orleans trying to get their 6th win of the season. And when Drew Brees is throwing and when he's throwing well, it's pretty hard to imagine them not doing that. They're playing great defense. And when Brees throws 5 touchdowns, this one to Kenny Stills, and then later in the game to none other than, I think we all know who, Jimmy Graham. New Orleans is looking pretty good. They're going to get the W. They win 35-17 against Buffalo, go 6-1. Well, now let's get to the ugly side of the NFC with New York and Philly. Both teams are a little rough, but New York, can they win twice in a row? Well, when you're kicking the ball this much, normally it's a no, but Philly can't score, and the Giants kick 5 field goals to win 15-7. Great game, kind of. Jacksonville versus San Francisco in London. As we know per usual, San Fran's been on fire. Jacksonville is about as cold as you can get, and it showed during the game. Colin Kaepernick taking this one in the end zone in his own, and then throwing a little bit of a touch pass later, Vernon Davis. San Fran wins 42-10. Now that we've taken a look at the 1 o'clock games, let's look into one of them just a little more in depth, and that is Detroit and Dallas. All during the week, we heard Calvin Johnson, Dez Bryant, who's better? Neither of them really contributed to the conversation much. Dez kind of pointed out and said, look, I'm not saying I'm better than Calvin. I'm saying I'm the best at what I do, and he's the best at what he does. Unfortunately, that does very little whatsoever to clarify this dilemma for us. So fortunately, they played against each other today, and that muddied the waters a little bit and made them a little bit clearer. On one note, Calvin Johnson. He had a boatload of catches for 329 yards, second most all time. A touchdown, got tackled like 3 times within the 5-yard line or the 1-yard line, so that one touchdown could have skyrocketed if need be. Although, to be fair, it did make Matt Stafford's game-ending touchdown look a heck of a lot better. I mean, if Calvin had gone in, it'd be like, oh, great day for Calvin, and it just kind of put the cement on that. But Stafford's fake spike and just run the end zone was awesome. Either way, Calvin had a great day. On the other hand, he did fumble twice. You can't do that. Whether you're a running back, receiver, quarterback, that's inexcusable. You can't fumble the ball. Once you get a hold of it, whether you get a handoff or a catch, or you just get it from the center, the number one rule is tuck it before you do anything else. Inexcusable. That drags him down a few points. On the other hand, Dez Bryant did not have nearly the sort of statistical day. Less catches, less yards, did have 2 touchdowns. Double Calvin on that note. But one thing he did not do was fumble, and one thing he did do that was awesome was his first touchdown catch. He caught it with one hand on his shoulder, bobbled it briefly, and then caught it pretty much on the back of his back. One-handed, maintained possession with a cornerback all over him and another one coming to make the hit. Both feet in bounds, right on the sideline. It was a great catch. So this begs the question, which one of them is really better after this game? Despite Calvin's fumbles, I don't think anyone can argue with 329 yards and the absurd amount of jump balls he's getting and then bringing down. It's ridiculous. He had one over the middle during the 4th quarter when they're making their raging comeback. He jumps up. It wasn't like a jump ball where he's facing the quarterback and it's a jump. He's on the run, an over-the-shoulder jump ball. It was incredible. They did a replay. His chin was above any other head around. The man is a freak of nature, an athlete above all else. Dez Bryant, you're getting there. You are. You're getting close. At the end of last season and into this season, you've done great. But for me, you're number 2, a little less physically gifted, which is not saying anything about you. It's a compliment to Calvin. And also, Calvin gets the ball thrown to him a billion times a game. Thank you, Detroit Lions, for having strictly a 55 passes per game rule in your playbook, apparently. So, Megatron, you win. Moving past Dallas and Detroit, let's talk some Kansas City. The Chiefs. The Chiefs, who last year went 2-14, and now they're 8-0. No other undefeated teams in the NFL. Where does this put them? Are they the best? Are they not? Well, record shows they are. They win games. Do they win them pretty? Not always. Do they blow teams out? Not always. But one thing you can say about the Chiefs are two things. A, they don't turn the ball over. They are very good at keeping the ball in their own possession, and when they get into third down situations, Alex Smith, Jamal Charles, they don't make bonehead mistakes throwing balls into coverage to try to get that first down or running that extra yard just to make sure you can get the first down but then fumbling it. They don't do that. They play it safe and smart and punt the ball. They play the game for field advantage and don't turn it over. And it's working out great, 8-0. The other thing, they're remarkably consistent. While they haven't blown anyone out, they also haven't gone into a giant high-scoring affair with someone, and they also haven't been, with the exception of a very few select games, they're not exactly scoring a very low amount of points either. It's pretty much the same thing week in and week out. Whether it be a 6-point to 14-point victory, it's a victory. And you know what? I don't think they're number 1, but I think you can make the strong case for it. I don't think Denver's number 1. I don't think New Orleans is number 1. Frankly, I don't know who's number 1 at this point. I think you can make a strong case for Kansas City. I haven't bought into it fully yet. I haven't. I want to see them do one of these things, like blow a team out or shut a team out entirely a little more often. But how can you not support them? I mean, it's mind-blowing. I don't know what to tell you. Kansas City's doing great. I can't wait to see what Andy Reid and Alex Smith do for the rest of the year. I'm curious to see if Denver can get back on track, so they turn the ball over a little bit more as of late. New Orleans and San Fran are on hot streaks. Seattle Seahawks are the Seattle Seahawks. All those teams are making strong cases for number 1, but I guess, you know what? I'm going to say it. 8-0, that puts you at number 1. Can't argue with that. Now, moving away from the NFL, let's go to the MLB, and we're going to talk a little bit of the World Series. As we know, there was a giant debacle, to say lightly, in Game 3. Middlebrooks kind of flopped over to try to get the wild throw by Saltalamacchia, and as a result, he was called for obstructing. Cardinals win 5-4. Obviously, on the Cardinals' end, they win, they're happy, but I'm sure they're also thinking to themselves, wow, we kind of wish we had won in another way than getting an obstruction call for the first time in World Series history. And Boston is certainly, well, in a nice word, they're upset about this. What we can be guaranteed to have is come Game 4 in St. Louis, Boston is coming with a fire bigger than they probably had the entire postseason, probably than the entire year, and they're ready to light up the scoreboard. St. Louis hopes they can match it. They're sitting there saying, yeah, you know what, no, this game isn't going to get us too much, we're not going to get too out of our minds. We're not going to sit there and think, oh, we got this. They're going to stay, calm, cool, collected, and be ready to play. But they're not going to be able to match the intensity that Boston is bringing, even if they try to. Boston is ticked. So, how's this going to work out? You have Clay Buchholz, who is not pitching well, going for Boston, who has not done well remarkably in the playoffs, and frankly just came back from injury just to play, and he's not going to get you more than 6 innings. All I know is pitching for the Red Sox is not looking great for this game. On the other hand, Lance Lynn, not exactly a giant improvement either. In the divisional series, he only got through 4 2/3 innings before he was pulled. Granted, then against the Dodgers in the conference series, he did a lot better. But either way, on both ends, the pitching isn't great. So here's what I'm expecting. Buchholz is going to allow a fair share of runs. It's going to happen, and the Red Sox reliefs are going to come in and do a good job of closing the game out. What I'm expecting even more of, though, is the Red Sox batters are going to go nuts. They're going to make it happen, and it all, of course, will start with the man who's frankly been pulling this team in the World Series thus far, good old Big Papi, David Ortiz. As we know, he's a good old lefty, and as we know, St. Louis strictly has right-handed pitching. And if Lynn cannot pitch consistently well during this game, I'm expecting Papi, along with the rest of the lineup, to just go berserk. If Lynn does not pitch well, Big Papi and Ellsbury in particular, 2 lefties, are going to light the scoreboard up, and they need to be wary of that. Personal projection, I'm going to put Boston up winning by about 3 or 4 runs, somewhere in the nature of 7-4, 7-3. Boston's going to take it, go 2-2, and then we'll see what happens into Game 5. But certainly, I think the momentum that Boston brings into this, just strictly emotionally, is going to push them to a victory, and then it'll make the World Series once again tied up 2-2 and a heck of a lot more interesting. Now, away from the MLB and back to the NFL, tomorrow night we have our Monday night game between Seattle and St. Louis. Seattle, Well, they're really good, and St. Louis doesn't have Sam Bradford. There's really not much to this preview. Zach Stacy's running well, but he's going to run right into a front wall of Seattle Seahawks who are going to, frankly, teach him exactly what it means to face a good defense. It's unfortunate. I have him on my fantasy team. I want him to do well. I'm not expecting it to happen. Put it this way, he was on my bench and no longer my flex for this week. So without Sam Bradford, their passing game isn't going to do much better. I'm not saying Seattle's offense is going to go berserk. St. Louis has a pretty decent defense, but this one's going to Seattle pretty much hands down. Russell Wilson, Marshawn Lynch, the entire team, it's going to go to Seattle. I'm going to put in the range of, say, 28-13. That's my guess. But that's all the time that we have on this episode of One-on-One Sports, The Tape Deck. Join us next week where we take, again, a look forward and a look back at the things that have happened in sports. Thanks for stopping by.